Hey everybody, Mc.Moody here. And next up on the list is Sonic Superstars. Yeah, this is another 2D Sonic game in the style of the classic series. This seems to be Sega's response to the success they received after releasing Sonic Mania. But those are some really big shoes to fill, so did they actually manage to produce a worthy follow-up to that game? Well, let's find out, shall we? Again, for this review, I'll be using the Switch version of the game. I will be going into quite a lot of detail in this video, so if you're afraid of spoilers, you might want to not watch this video. Anyway, without further ado, let's dive in. And the game starts off with a pretty nice animated cutscene, I have to say. Yeah, I actually really like these. The animation here is of pretty high quality. Dr. Ivo Robotnik is conducting some sort of secret plan. And he's actually getting some help this time. From Fang the Sniper and this clumsy looking helmet person. Sonic and Tails swoop in with the tornado, ready for some action. They chase down Fang a little bit, and then the game just starts. And then we start off and, hey, it's actually not Green Hill Zone. It's an actual original level. Wow, Sega, I'm proud of you guys. Yeah, this is Bridge Island Zone. Yeah, sure, there are some similarities to Green Hill Zone, but besides that, it's a pretty good first level, I have to say. It's definitely great for teaching you the basics. Speaking of which, yeah, it's a 2D Sonic game, and everything definitely controls like you expect it to. We have the spin charge and the drop dash at your disposal, but it definitely feels a little bit different than Sonic Mania, but not in a bad way, just in a different way. The main problem here is the camera though, it's just a bit too zoomed in, which makes reacting to upcoming obstacles all the more difficult. Again, Sonic Mania and the classic series did this right, so I'm not quite sure what happened here. You can get used to it and you definitely will, but it's still a bit annoying nonetheless. And there are also no lives in this game. You just respawn at the last checkpoint every time you die, which I really like to be honest. Off the bat we can play as 4 different characters. Sonic of course has the highest speed, Tails can fly, Knuckles can glide and climb on walls, and hey, we have Amy this time as well. She can double jump and use her hammer to attack enemies while she's jumping. There are also some extra levels in the game that can only be played with a specific character. These can be quite cool because the level design is built around that character's specific moveset. And as a bonus, they usually contain some extra story stuff as well. So that's quite nice. And you can freely switch between characters in between each act if you want to. Finding one of these big golden rings will let you enter a special stage with a chance to nab a Chaos Emerald. Yep, I'm not really a fan of these special stages. You're basically in this 3D dot matrix and you Spider-Man swing your way across to where the Chaos Emerald is. When you're close enough you can do a homing attack on the emerald to obtain it. And you can collect rings to stay in a special stage for longer. These levels can either be incredibly brain dead easy or kind of frustrating when the homing attack doesn't decide to work for some reason. But I actually really like what they did with the Chaos Emeralds in this game. Unlike older games, every emerald gives you an individual new ability that you can use. It's basically an ability that you can use at any time, but only temporary. The blue emerald gives you Avatar, which is definitely the most useful one. It's essentially a screen nuke and a free hit against bosses. Just trust me, you really want to use this one against bosses. The red one gives you Bullet, which is basically a directional air dash attack. Purple gives you Vision, which just makes invisible platforms and rings appear. Only useful in very specific situations, of course. The light blue one gives you Water, which lets you swim freely in the water and the waterfalls. The green one gives you Ivy, which lets his beanstalk grow until you hit the ceiling. The yellow one slows down time for a few seconds. And the last one gives you Extra, which is a temporary unique ability for every character. So Sonic gets the homing attack for some reason. Not really sure why he doesn't have this in the standard moveset, but okay. Tails can shoot these projectile tornadoes, Knuckles gets a projectile attack, and Amy can throw her hammers in an arc like this. So yeah, lots of unique abilities to toy around with, and I never use any of these. Yeah, I just always forget to use them in the middle of the action, I suppose. But still, Avatar is definitely the one that you want to use against bosses. And of course, like in older games, if you collect all 7 of the Chaos Emeralds, and you own 50 rings, you can transform into
Super Sonic.
But this time around you can only collect 1 emerald per zone though, so no early Super Sonic this time though. If you find another golden ring in one of these stages, it'll just be blue and you just have a chance to win a medal. Yeah, so medals are the main collectible in the game and they serve as some kind of currency. More on that later. They can be found in a variety of different ways, like sometimes they just appear on the level, and you also get one after collecting 100 rings. You know, instead of an extra life. And you can also enter these Sonic 1 bonus stages if you get to a checkpoint with 50 rings. These stages can also nab you some medals. And almost every act ends with a boss fight as well. And my god, we need to talk about the bosses in this game. Yeah, the bosses are quite different compared to the classic games. They're more of the kind where you just wait around until a specific attack that gives you an opening, and if you miss your chance, you just have to sit through an entire cycle of attacks all over again. It can be pretty frustrating. I generally don't really like it when bosses are designed like this, and it just doesn't suit the Sonic gameplay style at all. These first few bosses are still fine, but even this first boss against Eggman has 2 phases and goes on for just a little bit too long. And trust me, this only gets worse from here. Some of the later bosses can just drag on for what seems like forever, and some of them can be quite hard as well on top of that. Yeah, the bosses are definitely the lowest point of this game for me. Sure, there's an argument to be made that the bosses in the classic games are just too easy, like you can just destroy them in seconds if you actually know what you're doing. But this is just not the way to correct for that issue. In between each act, you actually have the option to return to a hub world, if you want to. You can also just blast on to the next act, just like in the classic games. There's not much going on here though, it's very minimalistic, just basically a way to return to all the levels. But I mean, I really welcome this. I think every platformer should have something like this at the minimum. Here you can also enter these bonus acts, provided if you have a piece of fruit, that is. These pieces of fruit can be obtained in the capsules at the end of each zone, but only if you're lucky enough. Yeah, this is not really that special, it's just another bonus stage and a chance to get some more medals. You can spend these medals in the part shop, which is accessible from the hub world. Here you can essentially buy parts for your own customizable robot, which you can play as in this game's battle mode. Yeah, I just don't really care about this mode, to be honest. You play in 3 rounds of essentially minigames against 7 other robots. The minigames are themed around survival and collecting stars and things like that. But this mode is actually fully playable online as well, so at least there's that. Maybe I'm just missing something about this mode here, but I would say this mode is just not really worth your time. Well yeah, anyway, back to the main game. So the next zone is Speed Jungle Zone. This level is really cool, I love it so much. It's really fast paced, you have all of these vines that you can slide on and all of these little wooden tubes you can go through. It's just a really cool Sonic level. The first act is just a blast, it's just really fast paced and everything. And then the second act is just a bit more slowed down, where it's more focused on this darkness mechanic, which makes it more difficult to see. And I also really like the music in this level. Yeah, the entire soundtrack of this game is quite good. It doesn't even come close to Sonic Mania in my opinion, but still it does the job and it's just really nice music that fits the levels quite well. There's also an extra act here which is specific to Sonic. And this level is pretty cool. It's basically this huge chase sequence with Fang. Fang, he does not mess around, man. He just shoots missiles at you and everything. He really wants to kill Sonic. And next up is Sky Temple Zone. Yeah, this zone only has 1 act though. It's a pretty fun level on and all. But the only thing that really sucks about it is a boss fight, man. This is really the first boss where I was really getting annoyed. It's not super difficult or anything, but it can be quite easy to mess up if you don't really know what you're doing. And it's just that it just drags on forever. So the boss fight basically alternates between 2 different phases. First is one where you're free falling and you just have to dodge all of these spinning discs that are coming from the underside. And then you have to climb up to Eggman to deliver a hit. And I mean, he just needs so many hits, man. Again, it just drags on forever. Anyway, next up is Pinball Carnival Zone. This is your typical pinball / carnival level. It's pretty cool stuff. And then there's Lagoon City Zone. Act 1 is just so much fun with all these water slides and everything. This zone just really makes me happy. And then there's an Amy specific stage as well, which is also so much fun. At the end of the stage, we find this helmet character. Her name is Trip, by the way. And Amy just takes her on her back and just carries her through the rest of the level. It's just really cute. But Act 2 has more actual underwater gameplay, which we don't like, so. And this also includes the boss fights. Yeah, this boss fight really sucks again. This is really where you want to use that Water Chaos Emerald ability, just to score some cheap hits. And then we have our usual desert level, Sand Sanctuary Zone. This level is really long, but it's also just 1 act, so that's okay. The boss fight at the end is not okay, however. It's actually really easy, but it just drags on for way too long again. And next up is Press Factory Zone. This zone is actually really cool. Both acts have really interesting gimmicks that they work around. Act 1 has this really huge press that's always looming in the background of the level, that slams down every so often. Every time it slams down, it forces Sonic into the air, so you have to time your jumps and everything accordingly. Act 2 has this mechanic where the environment slowly heats up over time, and you have to find and press these switches to cool the place down. And you know, there's this really big drone in the background that's just always there, watching your every move. Eggman is always watching us, even when we sleep. Yeah, this zone is challenging, but it's just the right amount of challenge in my opinion. The bosses once again kinda suck, but hey, what else is new? Golden Capital Zone is quite fun. It's basically a second pinball inspired level, and there's also a Knuckles specific level here. Just a really good time overall. Until the very end, that is, because this boss fight really sucks. So you're just chilling on this little flying platform that kind of controls the same as the tornado in all the Sonic games. And then Fang will just suddenly like assault you, of course. You just have to like deal with all of his projectiles and just everything that he's throwing at you, and then hopefully you get a small window to hit him on the side of the screen. I mean, this is all fine still. Until he just decides to be a little female dog and just repair his little flying machine. And then you just have to go through this super slow auto-scrolling section. Here you just have to avoid all these flamethrowers and lava streams and all stuff like that. And I mean, it's just auto-scrolling and it just freaking takes forever, man. And it's not just one section. You have to go to 3 of these sections in this entire boss fight. That's just ridiculous boss fight design, man. Like, this boss fight would already be long enough if it was just like 3 different phases and just hit them in slightly different ways. This auto-scrolling section in between is just really unnecessary and just weird boss design, especially for a Sonic game. And then on his last hit, he has all these shields around him, and you have to like smash the shields first before you can hit him. And I really feel pity for you if you actually die in the last hit of this boss fight. Because that means you have to do all 3 of these slow ass auto-scrolling sections all over again, just to get another chance. My god, this boss fight is bad. Well, at least if you make it through all of that, we get treated to a pretty nice cutscene. So, Fang had stolen all of the Chaos Emeralds, and we can finally get him back this way. But then Trip suddenly turns up, and she used the power of all of the Chaos Emeralds to transform into a freaking golden dragon. That's pretty awesome. And then she just freaking destroys Fang. Like his pride and everything is just destroyed. And that instantly makes Trip one of the good guys, I suppose. And then after this, we have Cyber City Zone. This is probably my favorite level in the entire game. I really like the aesthetic here. Just all of the 8-bit and retro style is just really cool to me. We even have the satellite dishes from Studiopolis Zone, from Sonic Mania here. I just don't know why, I just like this concept so much. It just looks so cool to me. And then you have this section where you transform to a jellyfish. Or this section where you're a rocket, or this section where you're a mouse, so you have to get through this wireframe maze. It's just a really cool time. And even the boss fight isn't really that bad here. It just takes too long, but besides that, it's not that bad. After that, we have Frozen Base Zone. We also have a Tails-specific level here as well. Act 2 suddenly plays out as like a shoot-'em-up game, so that's pretty interesting at least. And finally, we have Egg Fortress Zone. This is just your typical final level with lots of dangerous obstacles everywhere. But Act 2 is where the zone really shines. You actually go through the same level, but time is reversed this time. And that includes all of the obstacles that you come across the way. This is just such a cool idea and it plays out so well. Unfortunately, the boss fight really sucks again. So the idea is simple enough. He will just fire all of these missiles and you have to look out for this blue one. You just have to hit the blue one back at him. But you can't do it from the front, you can only hit him from the back. And this can be quite annoying because the blue missiles can sometimes spawn quite far away from you. And of course, if you miss your chance, you just have to sit through an entire cycle of attacks again, and it just takes forever. And then if that's not bad enough, of course he has a second phase as well, because this would just be too easy, right? In this phase he is chasing you, and it's just really easy to screw up, and then you most likely die and get an early death. Again, I just don't understand why the bosses are so bad in this game. I mean, I know this is supposed to be the final boss, so it's supposed to be a little bit difficult, but it's not that it's so difficult, it's just easy to screw up, and it takes way too long. And they're just not fun to play. Actually, I'm looking back at my recording footage right now, and pretty much half of the time that I spent this entire game has been in boss fights. That's ridiculous for a Sonic game. Anyway, at least if you manage to make it through all of this, the reward behind it is pretty good. You get Trip as a playable character. Trip is my most favorite character to play as in this game. I think she's just a lot of fun. So she basically changes into a spike thingy when she jumps, and she can hurt enemies that way. And she can also cling on walls and cling on ceilings this way. She's just a lot of fun to play. And if you have all 7 of the Chaos Emeralds, you can transform into this golden dragon, and it's just amazing. You can just fly around at will and breathe fire at everything. It's hands down the best super form ever. Trip has her own dedicated story mode as well, which is basically a sort of New Game Plus with added challenge. Because all of the Chaos Emeralds actually carry over as well. I don't really like it how they made these levels more challenging. They basically just planted enemies and spikes everywhere. But the actual level design is more adapted to Trip's abilities and everything, so that makes it interesting at least. And unfortunately the bosses got harder as well. They basically have upgraded attack patterns and everything, and just even worse, so that's not really a fun time. There's even an updated version of the final boss fight for Trip as well, so enjoy. But yeah, if you make it all the way through Trip's story with all 7 of the Chaos Emeralds, there's a final boss fight. First of all, the final boss is just this big ass dragon that just comes out of absolutely nowhere. I suppose they actually hinted at it at the very beginning of the story, but it just still kind of comes out of nowhere. Yeah, I don't really like the design of this fight that much. It just has all the similar problems that we've already been over. Well yeah, it's a supersonic boss fight, so that means that you need to collect rings to stay alive basically. Your friends will occasionally come to drop off a whole bunch of rings, but it's not really great that you constantly have to worry about this, and that you kind of need to get lucky that rings will appear often enough for you to continue fighting the boss fight. All until this game has just absolutely amazing level design that is almost just as good and sometimes even better than the classic games and Sonic Mania. And something that this game does even better than Sonic Mania is that every level is completely new and unique, and that's amazing. But the bosses just drag this game down so much, and it's such a shame. Otherwise, this would have been such an amazing game. I can basically only really recommend this game if you're a diehard Sonic fan. If you're new to the series, probably stay away from this game for at least a little bit longer. And if you made it all the way to the end of this video, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed this one. And remember, Eggman is always watching us, even when we sleep.